Hello, welcome to Basics of Immigration, Parole. Today I want to talk about a concept called parole. It will involve things that we've learned in other segments. Immigration 101, non-immigrant visas, immigrant visas, ports of entry, maybe even removal a little bit. So if you haven't watched those, watch that. It will be helpful. But this is a concept that will be helpful in the future to discuss some of the other issues in immigration law. So I wanted to be sure and cover it, even though it should be pretty brief. We're going to start with our United States. As always, this represents the U.S. territory, not a map of the country. We've talked before about ports of entry. By now, you should be very familiar with the concept of a port of entry. This is where someone comes into the country. Port of entry. So that will be important today. We have a non-citizen alien. Here they are. And they need or want to come to the United States for some reason. We've discussed before, in order to come to the United States, you need to have a visa. But we've also talked about the fact that you have to fit into a category to get a visa. If it's an immigrant visa, it may be based on your family relationship or your employment relationship, or potentially because you won the diversity lottery. If it's a non-immigrant visa, there's a whole lots of reasons why people could come, but they really don't cover every situation in the world. So I want to talk about what happens if we have someone who needs or wants to come to the United States and they don't qualify for a visa. So no visa for them. They don't qualify for any of the categories. How are they going to come into the United States? And that brings us to our topic of parole. Parole is a status that Congress wrote about in the INA that says you can give someone permission to lawfully enter the country without admitting them as a non-immigrant or an immigrant. So they're not here to stay forever. They don't have a visa, but you can let them in for a time even without a visa. Let me give you some examples. There are many, 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 many examples that can fall into this category. Let's say that this person needs to have a surgery, and the surgeon that can do this surgery, there's only one place in the world that can do this surgery, and they happen to be located in the United States at one of our amazing hospitals. Well, this person needs to come in, but there's no visa for getting a surgery. That doesn't exist. So they could ask for parole. Will you let me come in lawfully for a time? And the answer is sometimes yes. We'll parole you in, we'll let you come in and have your surgery, recuperate from your surgery, maybe even get treatment over a period of time so that you can come in. The United States doesn't have to say yes, but they can say yes and let them come in for that. Another reason why we parole people in is because they are in the middle of immigration proceedings already in the United States. They're here in the US going through their proceedings. They are waiting for the government and waiting and waiting and waiting. And meanwhile, they need to go home and do something, but they need to come back to finish their proceedings, but they don't have a visa because they're still waiting for their visa. We might parole them in so that they can come back and finish whatever those proceedings are. Or that was immigration proceedings. Similar scenario if we have someone who's in criminal proceedings and the government wants to continue the criminal proceedings, we can parole them in so that they can be here for their trial. Or maybe they're going to be a witness in proceedings. We're not giving those people visas necessarily, but we want them there at the trial. So we could parole them in for a variety of different legal proceedings of any sort, criminal, civil, immigration, whatever. Other reasons we parole people in are for humanitarian emergencies. True story, once upon a time, there was a natural disaster in another country, and someone very kind and very rich took their own private plane and picked up all these children who were orphaned because of the natural disaster and brought them into the United States. Well, they didn't have visas. There were no visas available for them. The United States could say, okay, we will parole them in. They could also just ship them back, but they have the option to say, we'll parole you in and let you stay here until we figure out what to do with you here or outside the United States. Those are just a few examples. There are many other examples of reasons we parole people in, but the important thing to know here is they're not here with permission to stay forever. They don't have a visa, but we can let them into the country for a little while with parole. And they are here lawfully while they have that parole. That will not give them any kind of path to becoming an LPR or becoming a United States citizen in and of itself. They could become eligible for a visa and start those paths. It's not that it bars them, but parole is not the beginning of a path to becoming a lawful permanent resident or citizenship. Okay, I think that's it. If you have questions about parole, let me know. I just want you to understand it so when we have some of our other discussions later on, you have some context for it.